Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of Impeccable Wisdom. Our objective is to talk with a perfect, flawless medical science now. And I do believe starting from nervous system is the best way to understand anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and psychology. It's a new chapter now, once again, to talk of knowledge as we know, which is imperfect. What is imperfection? What is the perfection? What should be taught to everyone around the world uniformly? Time has come for learning impeccable wisdom for the benefit of humanity by and large. The first thing which comes to my mind is the human nervous system. The most evolved brain in the world is human beings. And again, as I've been saying very clearly from divine mathematics, there are 7 steps every stage. Earth is made of 7 parts, Antariksha is made of 7 parts, there are 7 heavens, 7 days, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. From that angle, there should be 7 parts of the nervous system also, if it's designed by the nature as we know. And this is an integrated wisdom of nature which I do know. If nervous system is the perfect one, most evolved and designed with the complete design of the nature, it should have 7 parts only, not 6 or 8. With that conviction, I am starting now in this particular series. Now, my first misconception, which I have heard as a professor of physiology who was trying to understand integrated anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and psychology, all the 4 subjects to every student and every part. First thing which I realized from the knowledge of the books as a medical student from Madras Medical to till today, in the last 60 years, by and large, the nervous system is the most difficult as such. And my personal honest conviction is the nervous system is as simple as the divinity itself. It is a mystery which is created by the people that it is bad because they do not understand nature at all. And mystery is nothing but a failure on the part of every concept writer. Because they don't understand, they make it mystery and nobody understands it. And I am trying to demystify the entire mysteries of the world and say they are convictions of the wrong knowledge, not of the perfection. If you are in tune with nature, nature has never created any mystery of any nature in the world. It's a mystery is a failure of the human part because they don't understand divine mathematics. So from that, nervous system is the most simple as you can ever expect. The perfect divine design of nature you can see in nervous system and everywhere in the nature. And it follows the fundamental principle of Divyank alone. And Divyank, I have been making it very clear, it took me almost 60 years of effort to find the perfection within me and the nature. And finally in 2015, I got Divyank, recognized for the first time, conceived and revealed in 2015 by Shivbhushan Sharma, has changed the whole education in the system. And I'm trying to spread that wisdom one by one. And I think Quora answers and now YouTube videos are going to be the reflection of the impeccable wisdom for the entire world. And I have been using the language of English because it's the international language, and also using the language of symbols, which is divine mathematics. And everything is defined in mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology and other sciences, which are the perfect, no mystery, no philosophy, no misconception at all. And that is the point. Now there comes the question. Misconception, nervous system most difficult. I said the posterior part of the nervous system is sensory in component. This is the first revelation which I am giving. Posterior part of the nervous system is sensory in component. There are 10.344 chakras on the back side which are sensory in component. That's the first thing. Posterior part is sensory. There are 10.344 chakras. and then anterior part is the motor component. Absolutely thing. Sensations to get the information from, motor to execute. Then one more concept which I am going to tell as we move. There is a central part which in the brain for cognition, and also the autonomic nervous system is involuntary in nature. Once these three things are kept in mind, we'll have no difficulty remembering, and you're going to see that over many of the videos you're going to follow every day explaining that. And the first one which I'm talking about, the classification of nervous system, which has to be perfect. Many of the people have been asking me, why are my videos 1 hour 4K so lengthy, maybe 1.5 hours? My point is, these are going to be the videos for the learning for the entire world. And unless until every possible question is raised as we move on and give the logical answer without a question, we are not giving the wisdom to the world. No one in the earth has enough knowledge to raise questions and find the answers. But I am glad, ever since my childhood till today, what I read from the world, I find there are defects, and with prompting from my soul of silence or voice of silence, Aditi from within me or Kundalini or Antaratma, I've been able to find the right answer and then find the right answer and give it to the world. That has been the responsible for me to get an impeccable wisdom or exemplary academic record from school, college to the university till today. And it is on the board examination, university examination, which is different from school examination, college examination, or the sectarian examination. When all the students of states are in school level, that is more important. And the university level, again, board or the university level, where nobody knows who is the student, what he has written, where he has come from, that is totally a sectarian thing. And only from that you can prove it, you have moved on. Having done that ever since my childhood, now the experience of 60 years I am going to share with one by one with the nervous system to start with. First thing, difficult? No. Posterior is sensory, anterior is motor, in between is autonomic involuntary system. There is evaluation in the middle which knows what to do and what not to do. Now I'll show you step by step what it is all about. Now let's start with human nervous system and accepted classification taught by everyone around the world. I have taken 3 examples which I found were very clear, simple and otherwise. Let me show you. I am not going to give you khichdi, mockery as such. First classification, this is one thing which I used when I was in medical college, and this is again a copyrights, and is one of the most beautiful description by and large. But here you see right on top is a central nervous system which is made of brain and spinal cord. The second thing is a peripheral nervous system. That means information which is sensory coming in and the motor which is going. The third is sensory acceptance to peripheral, sensory to the central. These are 3 components. The central component to the motor, to involuntary and voluntary, and then to sympathetic and parasympathetic system is all what is taught in nervous system throughout the world. No one more than even talks about it. If I say these are the 6 parts, not 7 parts, that means there is something missing. What is missing? I am going to show you as such. But before that, let me explain step by step what are these 6 steps first, and then go to the 7th step and complete the whole thing for the benefit of every student of the world, whether it is a school student, college student, PhD student, author, scriber or otherwise. Objective of Akhand Vidyashram is to find faults and give the impeccable wisdom for the benefit of humanity. It has only objective is not to find fault with anybody, is to find fault with the teaching which we have, so that every student in the world has uniform knowledge. And today's students coming from poor countries, poor backgrounds, do not have access to have those books which are very, very expensive. That's the reason I've been very particular that my answers in Quora and this, which nobody can change, is given free, and anybody who has a computer can log on to YouTube and read these answers. You do not need, and as you take, you can download it and take even printout and make your own books as you go on. As simple as that. For medical knowledge, now that is thing. Now let's start how step by step learn. My advice to every student is listen to me very carefully. Do not let your mind go even for a second out from beginning till end. It is good for you, good for the world, good for everybody. I want everybody to be healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. I do not want to suffer. I do not feel there is a need to go to medical doctors for treatment. I am nearing 74, but I am as good as 21 years of life in anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and psychology. If I can do it, I do not understand why others cannot. I do not feel the need to get to any doctors and things. As a matter of fact, over a period, almost all the medicine have stopped. I'm not against the medical profession, but we can change ourselves with the diet control, exercise and yoga, etc., and lead a perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and happy life. From that, this particular chapter is very important because central control is in nervous system. It's a master control. Once you understand the master control, everything else will fall into the space. That's one part. Now come to the question. Second picture is almost identical in this. I do not see there is much of a change, but there is something which is a little different here compared to other one. Autonomic nervous system also gives the information to the sensory is something added here which is not in the first one. I think leaving that, I think what is also, and I do know autonomic nervous system is both sensory and motor. That is what is reflected. So you see in autonomic nervous system, both sensory and motor, both are component. Whereas motor is only from this. There's nothing from motor to sensory, sensory to motor does not carry. But autonomic nervous system spreads both sensory and motor component. This is something very clear. So you have learned something from this particular thing. Let's go to the third one. Here you see sensory is in the middle. It's taking the information up to the peripheral nervous system, and peripheral nervous system is giving to central nervous system both sensory and motor component there. Then peripheral motor nerves to the motor division, then to somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system, which is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. That's also very simple classification. Sensory component to the peripheral sensory, to the central to the motor, motor to the motor, to involuntary and voluntary. Leave at that. This is more than enough to understand the concept very clearly. Here there is no component of autonomy to the sensory. I agree. The second one had it, and that is also point which I want, because autonomic nervous system has sensory and motor both. But sensory has a component of only taking sensation, motor only for motor activity. But involuntary system, which is visceral in nature, has both sensory and motor both together. But still, it is motor to execute and sensory to sense the experiences within. From that angle, let's move on to the next stage. Now, there are 5 senses which are very, very important. And when I take this, the first step is a 5 sensory thing. There are 5 senses only. Sight is associated with eyes. It's electrical energy. Smell is a nose is a chemical energy. Touch skin is electrical energy. Hearing ears is electrical energy. Taste tongue is a chemical energy. There are 2 chemical and 3 electrical out of the 5. That is also something which is very clear, which is according to Divyank. 2 and 3 is Divyank sequence itself or Divyank ratio itself. Let's start from here. That's the first step. Second step is the sensory nerves. we are starting from seeing the world as such through sensory organs, seeing the sense objects very clear, and why senses give you. But let me tell you, I have 5 higher senses also within me. That is clairvoyance, clairaudience, and other things. That shows the higher world, which most of people, I will not get into that at this particular stage. Let's stick to a common man's knowledge for a common person as such. That's one. Second is the sensory nerves. That 5 senses have their sensory peripheral nervous system. In this particular picture, I have shown the left and right wing of the eyes, the vision they see, 2 eyes, and pathway, and take it to occipital region is one of the ways of showing second stage of sensory pathways. As I told you, sensory organs on the back side, and this is the process from back to the central as such. This is second stage, very clear. Sensory in component, pathways, and done. Third is the third central stage of comprehension. This is the part of the brain as well as spinal cord which evaluate things as they are. So sensations come in, then pathway take you to the central nervous system, spinal cord first, and the brain as such. Brain has got 12 cranial nerves and spinal cord has another 31. We will get into detail when we come little further. But remember, the center is a system which evaluates, and that is evaluated temporarily both sensory and motor both, and based on the sensations only the motor actions or motor concept is taken place. So sensory and motor both are almost contemporary within that. Each one has a concept of sensation and motor within the brain itself and the spinal cord. This is the third stage of comprehension because that has to evaluate. It has a motor action and take a most appropriate decision to be done immediately. Persons whose sensory system is perfect, evaluation is perfect, motor is perfect, that person would never fall sick. He prevented for every damage he can because they have the system which can do wonderfully very well, and I am a living example on that. Now come to the fourth stage of motor. Motor, when I say motor action, they though involuntary and voluntary. When say involuntary, it is with the skeletal system and something which we can plan and do. Involuntary is the visceral, autonomic, which we cannot plan, but it is important for homeostasis by and large. So skeletal system, it is motor. When it comes to smooth muscles and cardiac muscles, again which is involuntary, which makes sure that we survive. So motor has got both voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary is skeletal systems, complete sensory for movement, other things which we can design and do. Then involuntary, which we do not design, which happens automatically because there is a sensory component and motor component itself, and that's where smooth muscles and cardiac muscles come to play very important role. So that's something which everybody should remember. Come to the fifth stage. We have talked of the voluntary first. Now come to the involuntary part, which is much more specific. That is autonomic nervous system, which is again central. As I told you, sensation is the backside, motor is in front, but involuntary nervous system is in the center. And I am going to talk in the next one that there are 10 lobes, not 8 lobes, which the world talks about it. That's another misconception which I will discuss in the next video. But fact is, sensory back, motor front, and involuntary in the center as such. And there are two main components here. As we have seen in those pictures, parasympathetic system, which is for rest, digest, and conserve energy, is the parasympathetic system. Then you have a sympathetic system, which is for mobilization of extra energy in emergency. These two components are very important because to work that out, you need to have the energy, conserve the energy, take rest, and use it as and when required. This is where autonomic nervous system has a very special role to play for homeostasis. To keep ourselves perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and happy, homeostasis has to be constant 24/7. All the 10 parameters of homeostasis should be maintained, and that is done by autonomic nervous system, which is fifth stage of involuntary thing. Now come to the sixth stage of autonomic alone. In that you have the cranial parasympathetic nervous system. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. That means 24 nerves are there. And the 1/3 of the 12 pairs are 24 are cranial parasympathetic. 1/3 is again a divine rule. And what are the 4 cranial nerves or sets of cranial nerves are 8 nerves. The first one is the third cranial nerve, which is oculomotor, which is responsible for vision and accommodation of the eyes to make yourself fantastic, perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise eyes as such. So third nerve is only for eyes, is completely electrical only. Second cranial nerve, which is parasympathetic in nature, is a facial nerve. It helps in areas of the face, nose and the anterior tongue. It has both sensory and motor as such. A tongue is voluntary and involuntary both. A taste is there. That is the other is vision. This is a taste. That is a. The ninth cranial nerve is a glossopharyngeal, which is involved in the posterior part of the brain and thorax or throat or nasopharynx or pharynx by and large. This primarily is about the bitter taste, whereas sweet taste is with facial nerve. That is also something which we are going to discuss much more. But one by one hint I am giving it. You start looking for the serious subject if you are interested for rest of your life. And remember that in your brain for rest of life, because you need to be healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. Unless until everyone, I do not mean doctors, I mean every human being in the world should read my videos clearly, because they will give you the knowledge so that you become your own doctor yourself. Unless until you become your own doctor, you can never be a spiritual scientist, you can never be a healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. Without perfect health, you cannot have wealth, wisdom at all. Let's leave it at. The 10th is a vagus nerve, which is vagabond long, and this is connected with visceral organs of the chest and abdomen as such. That is something cranial nervous system. But cranial nervous system, let me also make one more thing. This is within the body, very close to the brain, face, nose, chest and abdomen. It's the internal organs only, nothing other than that. Second sixth stage of autonomic nervous system is the sympathetic nervous system. This is the central part. That cranial was the top. This is central part. There are 14 segments of spinal cord. T1 to L2 are involved. So as a result, there are 28 preganglion nerve fibers. And then you have two roots you can see on either side. 22 ganglion on one side, 22 another side, and right at the bottom together as a ganglion impulse or Mooladhara chakra. And that 45 by 28 is Divyank ratio again. And how different organs are supplied, you can see in this picture very, very clearly. This is sympathetic system which is designed with Divyank alone. 4 of the 12 is also Divyank concept, and I think that speaks volumes. Now, third concept of the sixth stage is sacral parasympathetic. Cranial parasympathetic, sympathetic, now sacral. Sacral parasympathetic, as you can see right at the bottom. This sacral part has got 5 segments. Out of 5 segments, 3 nerves on either side are coming. That's why Swadhisthana chakra has only 6. And then you have 5 organs which are supplied by that is a component, and this is again Divyank ratio only. I think that speaks volume. And up to this stage you have seen all the 6 stages I've shown you. Sensory component, sensory pathway, center evaluation of the sensory and motor, then motor component, then involuntary component, then sympathetic, parasympathetic as such. And I think up to this time you have become clear, each role is very well defined. I think now what I have shown those pictures, you have seen this is beauty and this is precise Divyank ratio and this is what ecstatic. This is not something which books talk about it, but you got to know it because your act of Akhand Yoga to make yourself to completely control your mind and be at peaceful with yourself, peaceful with the world and experience Satchit Anand. You got to have this concept very clearly because sacral parasympathetic system is going to give you energy of testosterone to make you intelligent, give you a perfect healthy body. But then sympathetic is going to come to rescue you whenever it is needed. And parasympathetic is going to give you the intelligence which is required in the brain. And maybe because I have all the three important things within me, I have a testosterone, as a result I have good RBCs, perfect oxygen concentration, muscle body, intelligence otherwise, and I've been able to do because autonomic nervous system in me is completely as far as Divyank is concerned. And many things which I have shown, you are going to see one by one now in the perfect anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. I mean all the four with the divine mathematics of Divyank, which no fault of any nature at all. Now come to the seventh stage of the nervous system, which has been missed by everybody. And I am making a very bold statement. Can anyone imagine the missing blunder? I didn't say mistake. I say it's a blunder. When blunder means you are literally an idiot. And I call that for all the scientists of the world, particularly medical science by and large, that neuroscientists by and large are 0, 0, 0. They don't even know what is the function of the outer three layers of neocortex. Forget about anything else. They become 0 there itself. Three outer layers of neocortex, what is the function? All the neuroscientists in the world cannot even answer. And I have shown that with EEG I can produce 8 hertz throughout the brain with eyes open in all the 64 hours, which no other scientist has ever even dreamt of it, forget about executing from that angle. But now I am bringing another concept down. At 7th level, you have a local graded potential for survival. I am giving you a sample which I am going to explain later. But then, entire 6 stages which are there in human body, let me tell you, they are in a local action potential. Action potential. That means sodium gets into the graded level threshold value from 7, -7 to 5, and then go on to reach the level of plus 38%. I'll show that later, not at this juncture because I want to make smaller ones, but each one is much more precise than that. That is again in microvolts. But the one in the brain electrical activities is a microvolts, whereas center one action potential is millivolts. When come to the local graded potential, it is sub-threshold value. It does not have a circle to create action potential and carries message beyond that, which happens in sensory system, which happens in motor component, which happens also in autonomic nervous system. But the 7th stage is only graded potential. It can go to a stage, but it has a sub-threshold value. It does not reach threshold to become action potential. It remains a graded. I am going to show you as later because I want to lead certain things for you to wait and imagine so that you remember this and go and seek that knowledge. What is the local graded potential is 3 stages, which is absolutely essential for the world, and 3 are the most important for homeostasis. Without that you cannot survive. Whether you're unconscious, subconscious or conscious, whatever may be. 7th is the most important to execute things. That's why I call it blunder. Let's take one by one. First thing let me show in this particular thing is my classification as I've done. You see at the 3rd stage on the left side, sensory component, peripheral and central nervous system, 3 components. Then sensory, integration, then sensory and motor output, then motor component, then you have voluntary and involuntary, then involuntary you have same thing is sympathetic and parasympathetic, and then parasympathetic and sympathetic put together. Sympathetic I have shown as a sacral parasympathetic separate, cranial parasympathetic separate, but with sympathetic parasympathetic I have seen one more down at the bottom part. Pacemakers of the heart, uterus and myotonic nervous system, our digestive system is something which is missing, and that is what I meant. This part is missing, but this is a nervous system which actually executes with a local graded potential so that we have a perfect, healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. I don't understand why neuroscientists of the world, why anatomists, why physiologists, why biochemists, why psychologists do not even talk about this, and very pathetic in state, and that's why I call this blunder. They have not even started thinking about it. The problem with the modern science by and large, mathematics is a man-made concept and people are trying to find fault with a fault which is already fault, and somebody is going to find fault. That's been happening. Even Einstein after 100 years found to be defect. Nobody is talking of divine mathematics. Nobody thinks beyond. We are a copycat by and large, and that copycat, I call it, needs to be changed. Why should we leave the knowledge to the world which is defective, defective and defective? Can you imagine one man telling the entire world that you have not even started thinking about it, which human beings are designed for? We are the local Pokpalan, guardian, custodian. We can be in tune with the universal. We are like Aham Brahmasmi. We have the concept. But when unless until you go with the divine nature, with that concept you cannot find. So be free to understand it is done for the good of the world, not to criticize somebody, because I do not blame anybody because the knowledge is like that. You haven't started teaching how to think, reflect and move on. That's the biggest problem which the world faces, and I am challenging that part and moving on. Now from that concept as seventh part, let's move on to 3 examples which make me understand the concept very, very clearly. The first mechanism, an exploited system, pacemaker the heart, myotonic system and neurosystem the uterus. These are 3 parts we are going to talk about it. Now come to the heart. It is cardiac muscles which are important. There are pacemakers. There is a conducting system of the heart which is made of 10 parts. Again 7 parts and the central core. Here you have 10 stages of conducting system of heart, which is absolutely important for the heart. Is why heart is the most important. Basically all the requirements of all the 100 trillion cells are reached with the help of heart alone. So whatever may we think, this heart should function very well, so that is has the independent function. Even we are unconscious otherwise, heart can still function very well. You can take the heart, keep it as sodium chloride, take it to somewhere and it will still function very well. It has the independent nervous system of its own, which is connected with the rest of the system. That is most important. I think that. And 10 part is SA node, and you have AV node, and you have fibers in atrium and 3 nodes of that, then bundle of His, and of course going on 1. But I have also shown in this, if you cut off the sympathetic system and parasympathetic system from this, SA node will produce a heart rate of 100, AV node of 61.8, bundle of His 38.2, bundle branches 28.3, and the ventricle escape can still make you sick. I think that is something which I want everybody to remember. Heart has got 4 pacemakers, and SA node to AV node to other system of 10 stages. Make sure even you are unconsciously it will work very well. And there again the system of blood pressure and other things are there. All the requirement of homeostasis are given by heart as such. So it's most important part that. Second thing which is important is the digestive system, because all the cells of the human body, 100 trillion cells, need water, nutrition, electrolytes and all the nutrients which are required. Without that, body cannot function. All this requirement is met by the digestive system. So digestive system has got its own pacemaker in the stomach. As you can see the white part in the fundus. and that is responsible for peristaltic movement. And the structure I have also given on that. But right at the bottom you can see amazing local governing nervous system, which is mind trick system as such. This is connected with sympathetic and parasympathetic, but can independently still function even when you are in sleep and otherwise. That's the reason when you say parasympathetic and other thing, you can rest, digest, conserve energy, come what may. This local system will make sure everything happens in the at a lower energy level, and that's what is local graded potential. I think like a private Ram Rajya stage which can independently take all the decision and done with it. And that is the most important part. This is to get all the things, and heart is to distribute it. So only then homeostasis can take care of this. So I think these two make it very important done. Now the third one we will take is the uterus, and must be wondering how I have brought uterus into the picture. Number one, as a medical person, I do know that uterus will be allowed to function by itself. Divyank has taught me the perfect menstrual cycle for the first time in the history of mankind. All the menstrual cycle taught by everybody around the world except Shiv Bhushan Sharma is defective, defective, defective. They don't even know the perfect design. This is the first question which comes up with this particular concept. The one which I have given is the perfect one, is based on Divyank alone. And here, whatever may be the conscious state or unconscious state, even in subconscious extended, when child is of 40 months, head comes down, presses against the cervix. It should be delivered automatically, come what may. There should not be death inside the abdomen. It can independently go. When head presses that, separates, the message goes to hypothalamus to release oxytocin, and posterior pituitary release the oxytocin. That when comes down, you can see a pacemaker right at the fundus part, that white spot. It contracts that portion and pushes the head further. And then another is this particular cycle of action reaction goes on until child is delivered. Even the mother is unconscious, delivery can take place. That is one thing which I learnt as a medical student. Do not interfere in natural thing. Do not go for cesarean section at all. Nature has designed it beautifully because it has to be delivered. Next generation has to be perfect. It is the most beautiful thing. But unfortunately, as on today, we for each and every, without any reason, we are going for cesarean even when it is not at all indicated. My wife had both the deliveries the natural way, and I observed, and I think it was fantastic. I go by, because the nature design is like that. From that angle, I think this particular concept of 3 is something at this stage should make a difference to the world. And unless until you have this as a prime function of anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and psychology of the human nervous system, which is controlled to make us healthy, wealthy, wise and happy, should have this kind of precision. Having started with this, we will go on to the next stage, and one by one we are going to see the perfect to be given to every person in the world. And I can assure you, everyone can understand it, but have the patience to listen to carefully, because every statement has a wisdom to understand. Do not expect even 5-10 minutes you can understand this concept. Be prepared to listen to the completely. It is for your good. I am making you a doctor of yourself, so you don't need to unnecessarily pay and eat something which is not at all required. I am a medical professional, but I want everybody to be treated without a medical thing by food, exercise and all those things required is what I am doing. In the last 20 years, my left is left not with the medical profession, but independent as a spiritual scientist, and that is what I am sharing. Now come to this stage, I am not going to talk about it. I think for the day is enough. First step, misconception to perfection, and I think that's done enough. Thank you very much.